I would like to specify, before starting to talk about reincarnation and demonstrate the evidence, that we must all give our best in this life to achieve the best. By facing difficulties, hard times, and everything that comes our way. Each of us can contribute in some way, whether small or large, to help others here, because by helping others, we also help and love ourselves. Sometimes there are no beautiful or positive moments, there is only darkness. But we, with the light of our hearts, though covered in dust and fog, can always make it beat with our affection and even with our pain, to inspire others and resonate in their hearts, reverberating universal love. Each of us is unique in our own way, and that is what makes us special because we can all contribute to something. Now I will speak about reincarnation and I will give you evidence of such phenomenon. I'll mention Dr. Jim Tucker. He's a professor of psychiatry and neuroscience at the University of Virginia, and he's also the director of the UVA Division of Perceptual Studies. I'll give you some examples of cases where children would speak about past lives. So one day Jim Tucker got a letter from a mom in Oklahoma who said that she and her husband were just ordinary folks. She worked in the county clerk's office and her husband was a police officer, but their little 5 years old Ryan kid for the last year had talked about life in Hollywood, and he would cry and beg his mother to take him back home to Hollywood. So finally, to kind of help him process this, so to speak, she went to the public library and checked out a couple of books on Hollywood. They were looking at them one day when it came to a page with a picture from an old movie called Night After Night. Ryan pointed to the second guy in the VIP picture and said, "Hey mama, that's George, we did a picture together." Then he pointed to the one on the far right and he said, "And mama, that's me, I found me." The first person he pointed to was George Raft, who was quite a well-known actor back in his day. But the second person he pointed to, the one he said he had been, was an extra with no lines in the movie. So Ryan's mom wrote to Jim Tucker to see if he could help sort out who this fellow was. So Jim Tucker visited the family and met with Ryan and his parents, and then afterwards, his mom started emailing him some notes on a daily basis with all the statements that Ryan was making about his past life. He was describing quite a life that frankly Jim Tucker thought was little unlikely for an extra with no lines in a movie. Eventually, with the help of a Hollywood archivist, they were able to determine who this fellow was. What the archivist did was go to the library of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and get all the materials about this movie Night After Night. Most of it had to do with the stars, but then she came across this picture and on the back of it was a caption. It said what a well-dressed rocketeer will wear. Marty Martin playing a rocketeer in Paramount's Night After Night, with George Raft and the other stars gives a demonstration of underworld sartorial excellence. So then Jim Tucker watched the movie again to make sure that they had the right guy and later confirmed with Marty Martin's family that in fact that was who Ryan had pointed to. Even though Jim Tucker thought it was unlikely that an extra would have that kind of life that Ryan described, it turned out that Marty Martin did. So Ryan said how he had danced on stage in New York. Well, Marty Martin danced on Broadway. Ryan said that he then went to Hollywood and worked in the movies, which Marty Martin did, mostly working on dancing in the movies. Ryan said that he then worked at an agency and Marty Martin started a successful talent agency. Ryan said he saw the world from big boats and talked about going to Paris. Marty Martin and his wife went on the Queen Mary to Europe and visited Paris. Ryan also said that he had a big house with a swimming pool, which Marty Martin did. Ryan said that this street address had the word rock or mount in it, and Marty Martin lived on North Roxbury. Ryan also said one time that he didn't know why God would let you get to 61 and then make you come back again as a baby, which is an interesting question. Martin died in 1964, and his death certificate said that he was only 59 when he died. So it looked like that was one detail Ryan was wrong about, but then Martin daughter and his stepson said that actually he was 61. So Jim Tucker looked it and found a passenger list, 3 census records, and 2 marriage listings that all gave ages that meant, in fact, Martin was 61 when he died, not 59. So even though the death certificate had said 59, Ryan was correct when he said 61. Jim Tucker mentioned Martin's daughter. She was only 8 when he died, but he met with her and went over all Ryan's statements. There was a lot about her father's life that she didn't know because she was so young when he died, including not knowing about one of his sisters. But by talking with her and using the records that they were able to get, they were eventually able to verify that over 50 of Ryan's statements matched Martin's life. Then they had a meeting where Ryan met Martin's daughter, who of course now she's middle-aged, and Jim Tucker said that it was quite a awkward meeting. Ryan seemed rather overwhelmed by the whole thing, but then afterwards he enjoyed going to the building where Martin's talent agency had been. Now I will tell you a little bit about how this work got started. Ian Stevenson was a psychiatrist who came to the University of Virginia in 1957 to be the chairman of the Department of Psychiatry. So he was in the middle of a perfectly successful mainstream career, and he was still in his late 30s when he was asked to be the chairman of the department. And when he interviewed for the job, he told people that he had an interest in parapsychology, but he had a lot of other interests too, and nobody seemed to mind. But then, after he got to UVA, he heard about these reports of young children remembering past lives in various places. He decided to go investigate, and he learned about 5 trips and 5 cases in India, and he went to India for a month and found 25 cases. He got similar results in Sri Lanka, and he realized that this phenomenon was much more common than anyone, at least in the West, had ever known about before. So he got intrigued by the work and started spending more time on it. He was able to do it because after he published his first paper on these cases, someone who became interested in the work was a man named Chester Carlson. Chester Carlson invented the Xerox machine, so of course he was quite wealthy. He started funding Ian's work to the point that in 1967 Ian was able to step down as chairman of the department and work full-time on this kind of research. He established what is now called the Division of Perceptual Studies, DOPS, a research division within the Department of Psychiatry. So Ian then spent the bulk of the next 35 years on these cases. He took trips to various places all over the world, and as you can imagine, an American professor showing up in the Asian village and starting to ask about past life memories tends to draw quite a crowd, and it did there. So he went to various places, mostly in Asia, but other places as well, and always maintained a careful, methodical approach. He never assumed that a case was due to reincarnation. Instead, he just wanted to determine, as carefully as he could, exactly what had happened in each case and what the evidence was for a connection to a previous life. Ian wrote numerous books and papers about this phenomenon. One of his books on cases in India was reviewed in JAMA, which is the Journal of the American Medical Association. The book review editor wrote in regard to reincarnation, he has painstakingly and emotionally collected a detailed series of cases from India, cases in which the evidence is difficult to explain on any other grounds. He has placed on record a large amount of data that cannot be ignored. So as a child psychiatrist, Jim got involved in the late 90s, so he has been at it now for 20 years himself, and Ian continued to work. He finally retired in 2002. Then he passed away in 2007, remaining active almost until the very end. The year before he died, he published his final paper, which was a wonderful review of his work called Half a Career with the Paranormal. And he finished that paper with these words. His final published words were, "Let no one think that I know the answer. I'm still seeking." Which Jim thought that this was a rather nice way to go out.